I'm Elaine Reyes at the CCTV UN Bureau at United Nations headquarters in New York, and this is UN Insider.
Coming up,
the frequency and intensity of extreme heat events is increasing.
Sounding the alarm about the biggest environmental threats, from climate change to biodiversity loss and plastic pollution.
We have 11 million tons of plastic leaking into the marine ecosystem every year.
A look at the UN's efforts to protect and improve our environment. Next.
Rising global temperatures, species and habitat loss, and pollution. Our planet is facing environmental crises that impact us all. The UN is pushing for changes that will help confront the three main challenges. Here's UN Environment Program Executive Director Inger Anderson.
Everybody has heard about the climate crisis, of course. That's crisis number one. But we also have a nature loss crisis, a land degradation crisis. So what's happening to our nature and to our marine environment? And then we have a pollution crisis. And these three crises don't operate independently of one another.
On this special episode of UN Insider, we'll take a closer look at the triple planetary crisis, where things stand and what lies ahead.
Climate change is accelerating, with 2024 marking the hottest year on the record.
UN officials say it's not too late to meet the goals outlined in the Paris Climate Agreement, but the window is getting smaller. Rising global temperatures and increasing extreme weather events underscore the urgency as the world prepares for COP30, the UN's climate conference that will take place in Belém, Brazil. But there is some optimism when it comes to climate and environmental efforts. June's Ocean Conference resulted in more than 800 commitments from member states, as well as the Nice Action Plan, a conservation blueprint that aligns with the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Progress was also made toward a landmark global agreement on plastic pollution, one of the world's fastest-growing environmental threats. UN officials say a multi-pronged approach to climate and the environment is critical.
We need to move across these three crises at the very same time. That's what we are trying to do.
For more than 50 years, the UN Environment Program has worked to address environmental challenges. I sat down with Ligia Noronha, Assistant Secretary General and head of UNEP's New York office. Climate change, as we know, affects all of us. And evidence shows a severe decline in biodiversity and ecosystems. One of UNEP's roles is to raise awareness and promote action on environmental issues. What more needs to be done? And do you think the world is listening?
The world is definitely listening. The fact that we have all of these MEAs, multilateral environmental agreements on climate change, on biodiversity, means that the world has come together in order to bring this up. The world listens, but the world sometimes doesn't listen fast enough. We need to really scale up actions. The science is there. The policies are evolving through the multilateral environmental agreements, but then we need actions. And when we come to the actions, we need everyone engaged, because the environment is not just about, governments coming up with policy directives, but the world picking up on these and acting on that, whether it is plastics or climate or biodiversity.
I understand you have some numbers you'd like to share with us.
Well, I was going to give you numbers on plastics, actually. In 2025, the world is expected to consume 516 million tons of plastics. Okay? By 2060, this will go up to 1.2 billion tons in a business as usual situation. And you have plastic pollution everywhere. But what's really upsetting and worrying is that we have 11 million tons of plastic leaking into the marine ecosystems every year. Do you realize what happens then? It goes into the water, it goes into the fish, it breaks up into nanoplastics, it breaks up into microplastics, and then we ingest it. And so the problem is very, very serious. And they're interconnected problems, because through plastics, you also have increased carbon emissions. Through plastics affecting biodiversity, you also have increased biodiversity loss. So all of these different problems are completely interconnected.
Is there one message or something that you would just want the average person watching this to know or learn?
What I would say is come together, work towards changing the way we produce and consume. The voice of ordinary people is incredibly important for improving the way we produce anything that we want and the way we consume. At the end of the day, the production is for the consumer, and the consumption can also determine the production, so they go together. So the more we can get, especially young people, to align, to come together, to change the way we look at consumption and align it with sustainability, the better we will be as the One Earth that we are talking about.
Assistant Secretary General Narona, thank you for joining us.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Coming up,
climate change has impacted our entire country. We are a nation that our capital city sits 2 meters below sea level.
UN Insider.
Climate and environmental issues have an outsized impact on smaller populations. Smaller countries like Guyana are often on the front lines of environmental issues. I asked Guyana's UN ambassador, Carolyn Rodriguez Burkett, about climate impacts in her home country and within Guyana's indigenous communities. Indigenous peoples make up about 10% of Guyana's population. How has climate change impacted those communities?
Well, I think that climate change has impacted our entire country. We are a nation that our capital city sits 2 meters below sea level. So if we just start there, you can see what the risks would look like. And what we have seen is an increase in flooding over these last years, but also we have seen a change in the weather. This is not only for Guyana. What I would say in terms of indigenous peoples, they play a very important role in protecting the environment. And I would say this without fear of contradiction, that they might very well be, and let me say we because I'm indigenous, might very well be the section of the population that might be more educated and more aware of the impacts of climate change. But more than that, what can be done to prevent climate change or to reduce climate change, because I wouldn't say prevent, to reduce climate change. And so our indigenous peoples have been playing a very important role in protecting our forests, for example.
Adding to that indigenous role, there is a lot of participation at the upcoming COP30 climate conference in Belém at the foot of the Amazon. What do you make of Brazil adding indigenous voices in shaping what's happening at the conference this year?
I commend Brazil for that. I think it's important for us to highlight the role indigenous people play, like I said before, in protecting our environment, but also to highlight the challenges they face as the climate changes. So I would certainly commend Brazil for this, and I'm hopeful as well that we will have a delegation that will include indigenous peoples as well.
Ambassador Carolyn Rodriguez Burkett, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Indigenous peoples will have a larger role in the upcoming UN climate conference COP30. Brazil is hosting this year's event. I sat down with Juan Carlos Hintiak, Executive Secretary for the Global Alliance of Territorial Communities. So tell us about your people, the Shuar, and what you have experienced, witnessed firsthand over the years when it comes to climate and the impact on your home.
My people, the Shuar people, we were living in the rainforest for many years, for centuries. Many changes happened in the last, for the last couple of many years, but realistically speaking, we are in the urgent moment. There's a tipping point that people are mentioning, but for us, we've seen that because we live there we are the best people to transmit the data from the ground, but the changes is in different ways. When we hunt animals, there's a period of time we have animals, sometimes the skin of the animals there's not too fat, because for many reasons, what's happening with the floration for the fruits, everything is changing. Some seasons in the year, sometimes we can see that there's too much rain or too much heated. That's what there are many cases in the Amazonia basin, but not too much in my region, but it's getting too dry. So that's why we call it the urgence. So the elders say, this is not right. I mean, we know that. And then I need to connect and mention about the externalities, about the deforestation, continue the bad policies, deforestation, illegal logging, the mining, the contamination of the river. Also, it's not helping, it's contributing to get more destroyed.
So you're looking at climate financing and a better way to help these communities and these biodiverse areas. It's still pretty fragmented. Tell us about this project that you are trying to lead in getting away from the conventional way of financing, like donations, aid. You want sustainable financial commitments and independence to manage the funds. Can you explain that for us?
We need to emphasize that this challenge, why our voices is important, because the rainforest and the tropics contributes with the ecosystems to cool the planet. People is living in this ecosystem, not just the flowers or the animals, people, human beings. People not contacted with this society, also living there, many groups. So it's all right to mention these people who are protecting, managing these ecosystems. So the initiatives that we are working together with Brazil was going to be launched at COP30. Any initiative that connect with us, for example, injustice about a lot of money, there is a lot in the world, but how much percentage is going to the ground, to the real people? They need this kind of money for keep protecting, keep living there. The leaderships, the people from the organization, from the rainforest, the global alliance, we bring the voice in COP26 when the UK was doing this big launch of 1.7 billion for indigenous people, local community. We applaud and we received that pledge. But that is why many of the elders, they were bringing concerns and real demands from the ground, because it was very unfair. Big money getting in the bureaucracy, disappearing the intermediary, is not coming to the indigenous people. That is why we create this initiative. We are not here for money. We are here because this is for life. We are giving life to the world. We are giving life for the air, for the cool. So we need to recognize our efforts, initiatives, and money has to be very well used for the philanthropy, for the donors directly on the ground.
Juan Carlos Santiago, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Coming up,
plastic pollution, toxic sunscreens, climate change, everything is destroying our oceans.
UN Insider.
Making sense of the overwhelming wave of information means cutting through the noise to shine a light on the heart of the story and making room for new perspectives. True understanding means the ability to see events from more than one side. I'm Liu Xin, and this is The Point.
The world produces more than 400 million tons of plastic every year, less than 10% of which is recycled. About 11 million tons end up in lakes, rivers, and seas. That's equal to the weight of more than 2,000 Eiffel Towers. More than 1 billion people depend on oceans for food. But many ocean ecosystems are in distress with dwindling fish populations and diminishing coral reefs. One woman is using her platform to call attention to both the beauty of the underwater world and the need to restore it.
Allison is a surfer, filmmaker, environmentalist, and world traveler who never leaves home without her pink surfboard. Through her never-ending adventures, she hopes to bring awareness and change to the issue of global pollution and sustainability.
A lot of people call the ocean the rainforest of the sea because it provides most of our world's oxygen. Growing up in these remote jungles and with these tribes, I lived off the earth. You know, it's like you don't survive if the potato crop doesn't do well, and you also don't survive if you aren't kind to people and you're kept, you know, everybody has their role in society. And traveling across some of the most pristine beaches and growing up in the ocean and surfing and loving the fish and the wildlife. And then now as an adult, going back to these places and seeing them plagued by plastic pollution and everybody modernizing and culture just disappearing, it was so shocking to me that it made me want to start my film series.
Basing out of my grass shack in Hawaii, I travel the world, sharing secrets of survival, sustainability, and happiness through my Allison's Adventures film series.
Allison's Adventures is my film series, and it's basically education through entertainment. So I go to many of the cultures that I grew up in, and I connect with a person in each place to share their stories and to share what's going on with our world in a way to protect this beautiful planet. Because as far as I know, there's only one Earth and no planet B, no plan B. A big cause that I've had has been preventing single-use plastic pollution.
My quest? Find a way to repurpose all of that plastic.
Current research shows that about 60% of our oxygen comes from the ocean. And plastic pollution, toxic sunscreens, climate change, everything is destroying our oceans. In Hawaii alone, since 2011, we've lost almost half of our coral reefs.
Allison travels the globe with her longtime friend and underwater photographer, Sarah Lee.
As a child, I spent my whole life swimming and in a pool and in the ocean. And that's really how I got into water photography, because I just loved being in the ocean more than anything else.
Together, they hope to raise awareness about the pollution that plagues our planet.
Look over here! Thanks.
What's been incredible for me working with Sarah is that as two girls with nothing really but a camera and a laptop and our sense of adventure, we've been able to go out there and make huge global change and impact. And I feel, I mean, it does choke me up to think that, you know, what one person or two people can do to really make change. And so I hope that I can be a voice of inspiration to other people, women, anyone, to go out there and, you know, grab a camera, grab a pad of paper, use Facebook, use Instagram, use anything as a way to make good change in this world. Because we did it, and it's not that difficult. You just have to have passion and want to share those stories. So I'm just forever grateful to Sarah for literally following me around the world and jumping on board with my crazy ideas.
I hope this is a good reality check of what's happening in the world, and it's not just a Mexican issue. It's an issue as a planet.
The coolest project I worked with her on and I just did photography for was She did this TV show where she survived naked on an island for 30 days and noticed all the plastic there, which actually kind of helped her survive, but it was also devastating to her to see all this like plastic covered on this pristine island. So she made it her mission to go back and create a story about how plastic was destroying the Maldives. The goal is, how do you like inspire people to reduce their single-use plastic, and how do you photograph this story to like kind of inspire people towards that? So that was something I really wanted to get behind, because it was a really devastating thing to see. But also, like, it was a fun challenge. Photograph it beautifully, but in a way that would also bring awareness to that issue.
An estimated 1 million plant and animal species are currently under threat of extinction. Protecting biodiversity can help strengthen the ecosystems that support those species. Humans working with nature can have a significant impact. One rancher in Colombia embraced that philosophy, and he's now reaping the rewards.
Luis Alfonso Abril is a Colombian cowboy singing about living in harmony with nature. This song says it is man's responsibility to conserve what God gave. But for Abril, this is more than just a song. It's a way of living. Abril produces everything he eats. He proudly says the only thing he has to purchase is salt, rice, and clothing. The rest he takes from the land. This is a good thing. The farm is a 6-hour drive from the nearest town market. A decade ago, when Abril bought his finca La Esperanza, Farm of Hope, things were different. The 136 hectares of land were up for sale because the land was said to be infertile. Now it's home to 50 cows, pigs, chickens, and a wide variety of vegetables, fruits like bananas and mango, as well as carbohydrates like Colombian yuca.
Toca con la palanca, ahora sí. Eso era como si usted mirara una placa de cemento.
This soil looks like a block of cement. The grass in the rainy season did not look like this. It did not look green. But now, with this process, it is completely different. It is soft. You can walk barefoot.
Porque un suelo que hasta de a pie puede andar uno.
How did things change on this land? Sustainable cattle ranching. Abril says a cattle rancher who isn't a farmer first has no clue about nature. It all starts with healthy soil. He stopped using traditional cattle ranching practices like burning grass to fertilize the ground.
Número uno,
First, we eliminated drugs used for our cows by veterinarians. And second, we eliminated the use of burning crop residue to fertilize the ground. Zero crop burning.
Cero quemas. Porque esto, para poderlo ver, tiene que ser rápido.
Abril explains that cow manure is a host for microorganisms that help regenerate the soil. Without the traditional use of antibiotics and anti-parasitic drugs on cattle, beetles like these grow in abundance in cow dung. They oxygenate the soil. Soon the grass on his property looked different.
Alfonso says his cattle was grazing here a day ago, and it looks like a delicious salad because there's 8 different species that they could eat from on this ground for 5 days.
What also helps produce healthy forage is the quick rotation of cattle on the property. Vegetation can regrow while cattle is grazing somewhere else. This rest period allows grass to develop deeper root systems, which reduces soil erosion and increases nutrients. Experts on rotational grazing say this ultimately improves the soil's ability to retain water, and carbon is captured and restored. This helps farmers to mitigate and adapt to some climate change impacts. Abril has noticed the difference in his soil when he is reforesting. he is planting moriche palm, which grows in the region's swampy soil. Abril claims efforts to plant moriches have prospered more easily now and grow faster.
El cultivo sí se sembraba en el invierno, excelente.
We would plant in winter and it was excellent. Obviously, there was water.
Llegaba el verano, como era un suelo ahí, como decimos los llaneros, cascajudo.
But when it was summer, when the soil turned dry, the earth would tighten and strangle the roots.
La figura apretaba y ahorcaba la plántula.
This farm is in Colombia's Orinoquia region, which is known as Colombia's last agricultural frontier. Large-scale rice and soy farms, African palm, and livestock are growing in number. In fact, the region is Colombia's highest producer of corn, soy, rice, and livestock.
I hope to see a dense moriche forest that will bring more birds and species so that this can become a biological corridor where the animals can take refuge and we can have the blessing of seeing them.
I'm Elaine Reyes at the CCTV UN Bureau at United Nations headquarters in New York. Thanks for being a UN Insider. I'm Elaine Reyes at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and this is a special edition of UN Insider.
UN Insider serves as an important window for the global audience to better understand multilateral diplomacy.
It's very important for the media to cover the United Nations, to seek to understand and tell the story in ways that the average person in the street can understand.
I think it's very important that the media should contribute to conveying important messages about the reality of today's challenges.
UN Insider has come to the UN, and we at the UN are so grateful to have it here. It is the only dedicated TV program to what is happening in the UN, and it is reaching so many people with, as it says in its title, inside the UN stories.
Media plays an important role in providing objective information across the world.
We think that media has a strong power of uplifting, what we are trying to convey as messages as developing countries.
We need the mobilization of all peoples, of whole government and whole of society, and media can help us to be informed so that we also can make our part.
I think the media is fundamental to enable citizens across the world, first of all, to understand what is the rationale of having the United Nations. It's not that there is one place on planet Earth that will tell the rest of the world what to do. It is a much more complex story.